All right. Thank you, cool Aunt Desma. So when I signed up to be the speaker a few weeks ago, I thought I would be talking to a bunch of strangers because I had just joined the group. And now that it's been a few weeks, most of you feel like family. And so now I'm a lot more nervous than I was before because it's a lot easier to talk to strangers than people that I feel connected to. So, kind of good news, bad news. Obviously, I've never done this before. I've only attended one, which was Matt's last week, and I don't know how I'm supposed to do it. I don't know that I'm going to fill 30 minutes, but I'm going to do my best. So thank you all for being here and for listening. Today's day 98 for me. So I'm feeling good, and I love seeing people's numbers go up as time goes on. As I said, I joined the group about 3 weeks ago. It's also great that people that slip are coming back and coming clean and, starting over again. And it's just amazing support group that I'm so glad I found, because I was on Kratom for about 8 years before I stopped. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I got started on Kratom pretty innocently, what my experience was on Kratom, and then what got me to stop and how things have been since. So let me just turn my phone off so my daughter doesn't call me in the middle of this. And we'll jump right in. I don't think I'm going to take 30 minutes, but like Hillary said, time does get away from me. So we'll see how it goes. So how I discovered Kratom super innocently. So I lived in the Bay Area for many years. I was in San Francisco for about 20 years, moved to Vegas. My ex-wife had a job offer. I was here for about 2 years and had a job I wasn't crazy about, just a little bit bored. And I didn't have any connections for pot. I'm an occasional pot smoker. I smoked a lot in high school and college, but certainly not every day. And I just felt like getting high, and I didn't have a connection. So someone had told me that in smoke shops here in Vegas, you can get pot. So I went in there and kind of asked, sort of innocently, do you guys have anything, similar to pot? And the guy working there said, well, no, we don't sell pot here, but I have this stuff that people like. They say it's kind of like getting high. It's called Kratom. And that was my introduction and beginning of my downfall. So I bought some capsules and I took it home and took it, and I immediately just loved it. It wasn't too strong. It was subtle. It changed my mood. It made me feel good. And I did a lot of research because, I didn't want to get into something bad for me. And so I did as much research as I could, and everything that I found online, again, this is 8 years ago, was positive. It's natural, it's herbs, it's from Asia, and it's from a leaf, and it's tea-like. And, everything I read was positive. And so I felt okay about taking it. And, I took it a couple times a week, and then it was 3 or 4 times a week. And then it was every day for a few weeks at a time. And then I'd stop a bit and then do it again. And, I felt like I found this wonder drug because I could still function. I could do my job. I could relate to people. It made me more social. It gave me energy. It helped me to sleep. And, I thought I found this like wonder drug. Of course, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I took it, on and off for a couple years, again, just recreationally, and then found myself doing it every day, and then increasing the dosage, and then found myself wanting to quit and tried to quit. Would stop for a while, would start up again, would quit for a while, would start up again. Every time I'd get like 2 or 3 weeks without taking it, and I'll be like, oh, I'm good. I can just do it recreationally now. So I'd go 2 or 3 weeks, and then I would take it. And then the next day I'd be like, well, I took it yesterday. Why not take it today? And then the next day, well, I took it the last 2 days. Why not take it again today? Next thing I know, weeks and months are going by, and I'm taking it almost every day. And I didn't think it was affecting me, right? I felt like I was still functioning. I saw a documentary. I don't know who it was. It was I don't know if he was an MMA fighter or some like physical sport guy that did a documentary on it. I don't know the name of it. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it was all positive. There was almost nothing negative. It said, yeah, it can be addictive, but I didn't have any issues with addiction up until this point. So I felt like I was good. There was one point where they were going to criminalize it as a, I don't know what it's called, level 1 drug, or something like that. And there's a crackdown on it. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was before COVID. And I remember that really well because A, I was worried I wasn't going to get it anymore. And then B, I got a great deal on a bulk amount of capsules because they thought it was going to be illegal. So companies that were selling it were, giving it away super cheap. I was functioning normally. I hid it from people. And then COVID hit. And my wife and I had always alternate schedules. My daughter's 14 now, so she was 9 or 10 at that point. And for most of her life, we were alternating schedules so that we can be with her. And so we didn't spend that much time together. So now COVID hit and we were together 24/7. And my daughter was at home for school. And my business, which was on the verge of getting acquired prior to COVID, I have a company called Code Central. We teach kids how to code. And prior to COVID, we were in negotiations with a national tutoring company to get acquired. And we signed an NDA and we were going back and forth with figures. And they had a meeting set to give it the green light. It wasn't a done deal, but it was looking really good. They were going to bring me on to help roll out Code Centrals nationwide. And then overnight, COVID hit, meeting got canceled. Everybody, went into survival mode. And overnight, I went from, being acquired and having this great opportunity to now, how's my company going to survive? So I was under a lot of stress, as everybody was. My wife and I weren't getting along. And that was sort of the beginning of the downfall of my marriage. So I've always been fiercely independent throughout my whole life, and taking the Kratom just had me be more and more withdrawn. I wasn't communicating. I wasn't interested in having sex very often. Physical touch, was almost non-existent. And my wife felt, she felt neglected. She felt not loved. And we would talk about it. And I would be like, oh, everything's fine. I'm just, stressed. And I would chalk it up to that. And eventually I got to the point where I felt like I would be better off alone. I wasn't feeling love for her. We had been together for 20 years, married for 15, and I felt we were just drifting apart and I would be better off by myself. So we separated. I moved out. I was jumping around to different hotels during COVID. Couple months into that, my sister passed away from cancer, and it was during COVID that she was struggling, so I didn't get to spend that much time with her. I was dealing with that, and I felt I was being emotionally strong. I'm getting through this divorce, and I'm there for my daughter, and my sister passed away, but I took care of a lot of the memorial arrangements. But it wasn't being emotionally strong. It was being detached and disengaged and not in touch with my feelings. And it led to my divorce. Well, we didn't get divorced at that point. We started seeing a marriage counselor online. After a few months, we got back together. I moved back into the house for about a year, which is a blur because I was continuing to take Kratom. And so one other thing, and trigger warning here, I am diagnosed with ADD. And so I had a psychiatrist that gave me a prescription to Adderall, which really helped me in focusing and doing my work. But I hated the side effects. I hated coming off of it. I was irritable. I couldn't sleep. I, just didn't like the feeling of the Adderall wearing off. Well, I discovered if I take Kratom as the Adderall is wearing off, I feel great. It's a smooth transition, and I go from an upper to a downer, and for another couple hours, I'm feeling great. So I started doing that. And then what I also discovered in taking Kratom is if you drink alcohol, it enhances it even more, right? So I would take the Kratom and then I would have a couple cocktails, a couple beers, glasses of wine, and I'd be feeling great for another couple hours. And then when I'm drinking and feeling good, I like to smoke pot. So then I would smoke pot. And I would only do a little bit of each, so I kind of justified it. But here I am, 4 or 5 different substances in my system, and I don't think I have a problem, right? And then I couldn't sleep, so I would take Valium to go to sleep. Again, I had a prescription for Valium from my, well, psychiatrist. Really, she was more of a drug dealer than anything else. And so Adderall, Kratom, alcohol, pot, Valium. And I'd wake up the next day feeling fine. No problem, right? Do it again. And so I kind of got in the cycle. And then after a year, counseling wasn't doing anything. Oh, so I had a personal therapist and a marriage therapist. And I told both of them about Kratom. I didn't tell them the extent that I was taking it, but I did tell them that I was taking it. And my wife knew that I was taking it. And neither of them knew much about it. They kind of brushed it off. One of them said, well, you shouldn't take it with antidepressants, and which was fine with me because I wasn't taking antidepressants anyway, because I felt like Kratom was my antidepressant, right? And I was hiding it from my wife. And anyway, cut to a year later, we haven't gotten anywhere. I'm not enjoying spending time with her. She's annoying me. Again, I feel like I'm better off without her. We split. We decide we're going to go through mediation. And then a few weeks later, I get served with divorce papers. She hired a lawyer. I had to hire a lawyer. It got kind of ugly and contentious with all the financial stuff. I got to keep the business. She got the house. And I couldn't deal with her emotion, right? She was super sad. She wanted to know what was going on. And I couldn't deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with her emotion, knowing that I was the source of it. The night that I moved out, this is my first night at my apartment, my new apartment. I went out to dinner with some friends. I left work. Knew that I shouldn't do it because I was going to be drinking, but I took some Kratom anyway. Went to the restaurant. We had dinner, had a good time. I only had one drink. Left the restaurant feeling great, but I had one drink. I had Kratom. I hadn't slept. I was dealing with a divorce. I'm driving home. I make a wrong turn. To get home, I realize it's a wrong turn, so I hang an illegal U-turn. And sure enough, there's a cop right there. Sees me do the U-turn. I'm going the wrong way on a one-way street. Just parked there as I turned. Anyway, got pulled over. Was totally not clear. Again, I had only had one drink, but I was not in my right mind. So he's asking me questions. Take the sobriety? No, what's the name of that test that you take? Anyway,
the field sobriety test.
Yeah, walking the line and doing, touch this, and I was just a wreck. Next thing I know, they're throwing handcuffs on me, throwing me in the back of the car, and I'm going to jail. Here's a guy that's never been arrested in his life. I haven't had a speeding ticket for 30 years. I own a company working with kids. I have partnerships with the school district and parents, and now I'm going to jail, and not just any jail, but downtown Vegas, which is like the worst of the worst. And so I was there for a couple hours. They let me call somebody. So I call my ex-wife to get me out, but they don't let me use my cell phone. I had to use a payphone. So I would call. She didn't recognize the number, so she didn't answer. So I would call again. She didn't recognize, she didn't answer. I called like 5 or 6 times. By now it's like midnight and she's not answering. And I was too embarrassed to call anybody else. So I spent the night in jail, just feeling the worst. How did I get here? What's become of my life? I'm divorced now. I'm living on my own, and decided no more Kratom. Well, you think that would have done the trick for me? But of course it didn't, I stopped for a couple of weeks. And by the way, each time I stopped, I would taper and I would count the pills. And each day I would take one less pill and one less pill until they were all gone. And I kind of knew the point where I wasn't going to feel high anymore. So when I got to that point, I'd cheat a little bit and I'd take one or two extra and then I'd go less. And it was just crazy games that I would play with myself, right? So I had a hire lawyer. Fortunately, my blood alcohol was only 0.03. So I wasn't drunk by any means. It was just the condition that I was in. My lawyer was great. I got it reduced to a reckless driving instead of a DUI. So, I kind of escaped that one, but I kept taking Kratom. And then my daughter got sick. Her appendix burst. We had to take her to the hospital. She was 12 at the time. She had complications. So she ended up being in the hospital for 3.5 weeks. It was touch and go whether she was going to survive. She had a blood clot. She was all skin and bones. They couldn't get an IV into her. I mean, it was just awful. 3.5 weeks. And then my ex-wife and I would alternate nights staying at the hotel, or not the hotel, at the hospital. And we go back and forth. And, you'd think that might have brought us back together, but of course, I'm not feeling any emotion. I'm just plowing through it all. So, and I talked to friends and family about the divorce, and I'd be like, I'm really happy, I'm doing great. Still taking Kratom. And, it got to the point where, and I'm sure you all can relate to this, I wasn't getting joy out of things. I play music and music wasn't doing it for me, and listening to music wasn't doing it. And I would spend time with friends and family and I'd feel flat, and food tasted flat. And I had this opportunity. I got to play music with, I don't know if you guys are 80s or 90s rockers, but if you know who Sebastian Bach is, he's the singer from Skid Row. And so the band I was playing in had a gig, and he was there, and he came up and did like 7 or 8 songs singing with us, my rock star moment. And yet I was high on Kratom, and, I enjoyed it, yes, but it didn't bring the thrill that it should have, right? And over this time, probably 10 or 15 times, I told myself I'm quitting, and I would taper, and I would stop for a week or two, and then I would start doing it again. I mean, as we all know, this stuff just gets a hold on you, right? And so anyway, my ex-wife got laid off from her job. She was having a hard time. I was helping her pay the mortgage. She couldn't find a job. She was thinking about selling the house. I'm like, no, I'll move back in. I'll rent out my place. I'll pay the mortgage. No, she didn't want to do that. Trying to convince her to rent it out. No, she didn't want to do that either. Anyway, long story short, she sold the house, right? So here I am, no marriage, no house. My business is going down the tubes. I stopped taking a salary for my business because it's not making enough. I'm living, I'm burning through my savings. And it's still not enough to get me to quit Kratom, right? I started dating on the dating apps, and it got out of hand. I dated like 10, 12 different women in a few months, and I would fly to different cities to meet them and hang out with them, or they would fly here, and okay, maybe if you're in your 20s or 30s, that's something you do, but I'm a middle-aged man, right? What the fuck am I doing? And it wasn't fulfilling, and I just felt really empty. So fast forward to April of this year, my daughter's high school orientation. I'm taking her there. I had stopped Kratom for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then decided, purely impulse, to take it when I went to this event. And I saw all these people that I knew from my business, from the schools, friends of hers, parents, my ex-wife's friends, and I was just disgusted with myself. I I was avoiding people. If I did talk to them, I wasn't engaged. I wasn't making eye contact. I felt shitty physically. I felt bad for my daughter. Like, what the fuck has happened to me? Here I am living by myself. My business is failing. I can't stop taking Kratom. I'm divorced, and my daughter's starting high school. This should be an amazing time for me, and I feel like shit about myself. And fortunately, I was so disgusted with myself that at that point I decided I'm done, and I haven't taken it since then. Like, that was the event that finally got me, feeling enough shame and guilt and just self-hatred to finally stop. So, and then a couple weeks after that was her middle school graduation, and I was in the midst of withdrawal. And again, I just felt depressed and despair. And my ex-wife was there with her boyfriend, and I just didn't feel any joy at all. But I also knew that I wasn't going to take Kratom again, and I haven't taken it since. It's been, like I said, 3 months. About a month after I stopped, so that was towards the end of April, end of May, I was meditating, and I had this like realization. I don't know what you want to call it. Anyway, it felt like it was a nightmare. My house is gone, my wife is gone, my family's gone, my daughter's suffering. And it was like having a nightmare, but I didn't wake up. It was real. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck have I done? And so soon after that, I reached out to my ex-wife and I came clean with her. I told her about the addiction and how it affected us, and apologized and let her know, how bad I felt about the damage I had done. And it felt really good, A, to come clean, and B, that she was so loving about it. We were like both in tears, and she was like, I'm so glad you're telling me this, because it helps me to understand so much now about what happened, and it helps me in my healing. And she said something to me. She said, not all great love stories have happy endings. And ours was a great love story. And it didn't have a happy ending. And Kratom played a huge role in that. Huge role. So she's been super supportive since then. We've reestablished our relationship. We're doing a great job of co-parenting. But I feel so much remorse for what I did. 8 years of my life, 8 years of hiding my addiction, rationalizing my use, thinking there was no damage, disregarding someone who I love so much. So on the one hand, I feel all that. And then on the other hand, it's been almost 90 days, almost 100 days, right? And I slowly started feeling better physically and emotionally. And, I have these like delusional thoughts of possibly getting back together with her now that I'm clean and now that I've realized what I've done. But it's really not a possibility. There's too much damage done. She could never trust me again. It's only been 3 months. I know it's something I'm going to continually deal with throughout however long it takes. I don't know. And she's got a new boyfriend, and I just can't imagine her ever going there again. And again, I'm not sure that I want to either. I mean, I'm drawn to it because I feel that love for her again, and it's nice to feel that, and for us to be together and know that we have that history, even if we're not together. I'm kind of rambling about that a little bit, but in 8 years, I was there for my daughter physically, but not emotionally. And we've talked about Kratom rage in our meetings. I would just lose my temper and yell at her for something that she you know, didn't do anything wrong. She just got on my nerves and I couldn't handle my emotion. I couldn't regulate my emotions. So I would yell. I put my foot through a kitchen cabinet one day just because I spilled some salad dressing or something. And also another thing, my ex-wife, I forgot to mention this when I came clean about the addiction. She said, I knew about it. She knew where my stash was, right? I'm such a bad addict. I couldn't even hide it and take it without her seeing. And she would go to the stash and she would count how many capsules were there to know if I was lying or not. So she was on to me, but she didn't know what to do about it, right? Because whenever she asked me, I would deny it. Anyway, I am now telling friends about it. This community has been amazing for me in having people that can understand what it's like. I went to an NA meeting and I didn't feel like I fit in there and they didn't understand it. I went into an AA meeting and kind of same thing. And then I found these meetings and they've just really become a lifeline for me. And it's helped me to continue to have that resolve where now I drive by a smoke shop and I'm like, fuck you, fuck you, smoke shops. I'm not going near you. And again, like I said earlier, I know it's still going to be there, but I feel with having the accountability and having this group and the communication that people have with each other, and I'm looking forward to time going on where we are the elders, that have years under our belt to support people that are dealing with it and that don't know what they're getting themselves into. And, I'm so pissed. I'm pissed at myself. I'm pissed at the misinformation. I'm pissed at the companies that are peddling it. We all share about that. I thought that was great about the urinal photo that someone sent today on the chat. How perfect is that? Not all days are good, but they're sure a hell of a lot better than when I was, counting my pills and looking at the clock on when I can take them again. And I'm feeling my emotions again. And I'm feeling love and gratitude. And I'm feeling sadness. And I'm still feeling, the guilt of the damage that I've done. But damn, it feels good to feel again, doesn't it? After being numb for so long. And I was sharing the other day, I was with my daughter's friend's family at the lake in California. And I felt so much joy and gratitude for their family that's been so supportive and my daughter. And then I would just be overcome with sadness about the divorce and the impact that it's had on her. And I would just be in tears every 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes for joy and sometimes for sadness. It's crazy. Anyway, I start a new job tomorrow. So I still have my business. My company's going. I have a director and manager that handle everything, but I wasn't happy doing it. So I'm going back to teaching, which is my passion. I start training tomorrow. It's at a private school, and as a teacher there, my daughter gets to go there for tuition half off. It's one of the best high schools in all the Vegas area. So it's a great opportunity for me and for her. I'm going to be around people instead of being isolated like I was for so long. And I'm telling people about my addiction, even though they don't understand. My brother, my sister, they were like, we had no idea. Well, first, they had no idea what Kratom was. And second, they had no idea I was on any kind of a drug. And so, yeah, I'm in a good place. I still can't stop beating myself up over the divorce and what I put my ex-wife through. And that's the hardest part, because that's, I think, the biggest cost for me. And in honor of Decima, I got to show you guys my before and after photos just to give you, am I doing okay on time, Jazz?
I think you're fine. I don't know that we need to tell you that you're not.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find these photos. Okay, here we go. I think I got it. Share. Shit, it's not working. Anyway, I had before and after photos that you guys would have gotten a kick out of, but what did I do there? Let me just, I got them on my desktop. So, all right, never mind. I'll send them another time. Anyway, I thank you guys all for listening. Thank you for being my my new family, and you know, I look forward to continuing on this journey with everybody. And I wish you guys wouldn't send so many messages on Signal because I can't keep up with them, but I want to keep up with them. And yeah, thanks again for inviting me to do this, Hillary. I really appreciate that. I don't know what we do now. Do we open it to questions or shares?
Eric.
Thank you so much, Eric. That was incredible. So many things that I'm sure so many of us can relate to in that share in your story. You know, the Kratom rage, the games we